Hi, this is Pete Eales from UK Butterflies, and this is the second video recording providing an overview of certain elements of the UK Butterflies website. In this case, I'm going to be talking about the species definitions that are included in the website. So let me start with what's on the home page. So on the left-hand side here, you'll see a complete species listing of all of the butterflies on the British list. Now, by the British list, this has recently been updated, and if I actually click on this article here, I'll be able to show you the specific publication that we refer to, which is the checklist of the Lepidoptera of the British Isles that was published in December 2013. So this is an update to a previous classification we were using by Bradley and Bradley in 2000, but it does represent the most up-to-date taxonomic classification available, and it's what we use on the UK Butterflies website. As described in the UK Butterflies overview, there's a distinction between primary and secondary species. So secondary are those which are adventives or accidental introductions or deliberate introductions or what have you, but essentially anything that's recognised and on the British list. But not core or primary species, which are shown in green on the left-hand side here, such as a swallowtail or checkered skipper. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually look at a species description. So if I look at a checkered skipper here, then you'll see all sorts of characteristics mentioned about this particular species in this description. Very simply, there are various sections here that describe all sorts of aspects of this particular species. So from the top, we have a primary image, which Vince chooses when we select images from the website, but we also can see the taxonomic classification of this species, which I'll discuss in more detail in a second. But each species belongs to potentially a subgenus, as well as a genus, a tribe, subfamily and family, and superfamily and upwards to various classes and orders, all of which aren't shown in every single species listing, but I'll describe those higher order elements shortly. You'll also see a distribution map on the right hand side, and this is really a quick link to the distribution of this species. And if you click on this thumbnail that we see there, it'll take you to a larger rendition. So here you can see a larger map, which includes both the distribution but also site information. Now I'm going to come on to that distinction shortly, but if I just show the distribution map, then you'll see the distribution of the checkered skipper on this particular page. So going back to the checkered skipper species summary. So there's a direct link to stock photos for this particular species, but unsurprisingly, there's an introduction of this particular species. There's what we call the showcase images. So here you'll see the male upper side, underside, and female upper side and underside. One of the other things that we may see a link to is a link to historic specimens. And if I click on this link, for the checkered skipper, there were actually colonies in England at one point, which have since become extinct. But with the help of the Oxford University Museum of Natural History, we've managed to get photos made of historic specimens of those colonies. So here you can see a representative set. And that's true of some other species as well, such as the original population of large blue, the extinct large copper, and so on. One of the other things you'll see then is a phenology chart. So this is basically giving you an indication of when the different stages are likely to be seen in the British Isles. So really just lays out the different, the life cycle, if you like, across a timeline of a year. So for example, as this video is being recorded on the 6th of February, then that's week 1 of February, and therefore the checkered skipper is currently hibernating as a larva in this particular case. And actually the information that you see in this phenology chart is generated from a database, which was elements of which were provided by Butterfly Conservation very kindly. But it also allows us to, as we'll see, generate flight charts for all species, so you can see what's flying add it on a particular date. We also pull in information from the UK Butterfly Monitoring Scheme, so this isn't actually part of the UK Butterflies website, but it's a visualization pulled in from that website. Information on habitat, larval food plants. Again, a lot of the links that you see here will link through to other pages which provide summaries of whatever it is we're looking at. So in this case, we're looking at larval food plants, and if I click on that link, it will take me to a page which summarises all of the larval food plants, where I can see a summary of maybe what other species feed on that particular plant. So in this case, purple moorgrass is used as a primary food source, for checkered skipper, large checkered skipper, Scotch Argus, and as a secondary food source for large checkered skipper, large skipper as well. Too many skippers. We then move into sections on the different stages, starting with the imago or imago. And here we can see images that have been contributed by various members of the UK Butterflies. Some really, really nice images there. We then have a section on aberrations, if there are any available. And in this particular case, there's one aberration shown, which I actually remember taking a photo of this chap back in 2006. There may be a link to see the full listing of aberrations currently defined for the particular species as well. Again, this is an ongoing piece of work because there are a huge number of aberrations described for certain species, over 500 in the case of the chalkhill blue. We then have a section for the ovum, and if we had any images, they'd be included as well, but the ovum or egg, larva or caterpillar, and pupa or chrysalis. Any similar species, and then we have videos if there are any available. So again, these are taken off of YouTube, and then links provided on UK Butterflies. But here we can look at one from John Chappell, who's got a nice video of checkered skipper here. Okay, so just turn that off. Site information I'll come on to, but one of the things that we have on UK Butterflies is a fairly extensive database of sites and the species found at each of those sites, and then we compile the information and present it on the website in the relevant form. So you can see that there. And if I click on one of these sites, then it will take me to the relevant page that contains that site. So here we see Altmachuic Nature Reserve up in Scotland, which is where we can find checkered skipper. I'll come on to these pages shortly as we move into that aspect of the website. We then move on to conservation status, which again is taken from information provided by Butterfly Conservation, and then we finally finish up with information on links to other websites that are relevant to this species, and finish up with any references used in the description of the species as used on this page. Since there were no immature stages on that particular species, let me pick another one. So let's go take a look at Swallowtail, because that will allow me to demonstrate some other things that you might see on the species pages. One of which is the fact that some species have a number of subspecies associated with them, or a number of forms. So here we see that the swallowtail actually has two subspecies. One's Britannicus, which is the subspecies found in the Norfolk Broads. And here you can see a discussion about that subspecies with relevant images, as well as its original definition and the translation kindly provided by Guy Padfield, who is able to translate a whole variety of languages: Latin, French, German, you name it, he's your man. And another subspecies is Gorganus, which is the continental subspecies, which is occasionally found in the British Isles. And there are differences between the two subspecies, including the food plants used. And again, you can see the original definition, which is in German, and the translation provided by Guy. And a representative showcase here, where, as usual, you can click on an image to see an enlarged version. The other aspect of this species I wanted to show were the immature stages. So we do, obviously, where images are available, include a representative set. So here we can see various eggs of swallowtail that have been photographed by members of the larva or caterpillar, and finally of the pupa of a swallowtail here. So for example, here's a photo of a swallowtail that's not far from emerging by the looks of it. One thing I just wanted to touch on, in case I forget to mention it, is that when it comes to those historic specimens, if I select something like a large blue, if I go into the historic specimens area, you'll see that there are 3 images here. And the reason is that these are from different races, so a set from the Cotswolds, from Cornwall, and from a famous colony at Barnwell Wold in Northamptonshire. But because we're able to open up these images and actually display them alongside each other, it is possible to, if I get this right, actually arrange them together so that you can then do a compare and contrast of the various images available here. So one of the differences between these different races, for example, is supposedly the different tints that they give off, as well as potentially the different spotting that you see as well. So by arranging the images like this, then you can actually do that compare and contrast, which is, I think, quite a nice feature of the website. So that's, if I go back to the home page, that's pretty much an overview of a species page, but there's a lot more to the information available than I've just shown. So what I'm going to do is kind of start at the beginning and then drill into a particular species and show you some of the other features of the website. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you this taxonomy listing, which is under the biology menu. And what you'll see here is a complete listing of all of the species as well as their taxonomic classification in terms of all of the different elements that make up their taxonomy. And at the top of the page you'll see that we actually start from the very beginning, so the domain, kingdom, subkingdom, phylum, subphylum and so on, until we ultimately get to the single superfamily that now is defined for all butterflies, which I won't attempt to pronounce, but originally there were 2, but they've now been compressed into 1. Which is why we're now able to start with families as the primary distinguishing characteristics of all of our various butterflies in the British Isles. So we have those 6 families, so essentially the swallowtails, the skippers, the whites, the nymphalids, the metal marks as they're known, so we've got a single representative in that family, the Duke of Burgundy, and the lysinids, so that's the blues, coppers and hair streaks. But what you'll see here are definitions of all of the elements that make up the taxonomy and those elements which sit above species and genus. So for example, if I click on, well, let me go down to the lysinids because they're arguably one of the more interesting. Then you'll see a description of the family itself, and over time we'll actually populate all of the other elements such as tribes as well. But here you'll see a description of Lysinidae and a description of how it is different and what distinguishes it from the other 5 families that are shown on the website. And you'll see some images showing some characteristics of this particular family. In this case, the relationship that most lysinids have with ants. So here's, for example, a photo of an ant milking, as it's known, a holly blue larva, which I took a few years ago. Other images, so ants accompanying an emerging silver-studded blue, and probably the most well-known association between butterflies and ants when it comes to the blues is of the large blue. So here we can see a larva, and here's actually a couple of pupae inside an ant's nest being tended to by ants. Another example is if you go into the, so you can get to the families as well, by the way, through this panel that you see at the top of the page. So if I click on the Rheodinidae, the metal marks, where we have the Duke of Burgundy, one of the distinguishing features is the fact that the male has 4 useful legs. It actually has 2 stubs, if you like, for the forelegs, but the female has 6 fully functional legs. And you can put these images side by side or one above the other and actually see the difference between the 2. So here on the left you can see that the male only is apparently walking on 4 legs, but the female on all 6. And that's actually one of the distinguishing features of this family. Okay, so that's, if I just go back to the taxonomy page, yeah, so you can see all of the different species listed here, all of the taxonomic elements that make up that species, going from family to subfamily, tribe, genus, subgenus, species. And then you may also see the listings of subspecies and any forms that may be relevant to that particular species. And you can click on all these links to get to the relevant item. So for example, if I click on grizzled skipper, then I'm taken to the grizzled skipper page. Just to finish up then, what I'd like to do is just cover off the species menu, because there is an awful lot of information under there as well. So there's a summary of aberrations, so you can select the species that you might be interested in, such as Adonis blue. And here you'll see a description as well as a listing, if a listing's been created, of the different aberrations available for that species. There's something on butterflies and the law, a summary of conservation status for all the different species. So you'll see the various distribution and population trends for the various species. Something on species density, so if you were to go to a particular square, then what species are found there? Well, this is the sort of capability that this link provides. And here you can see a hotspot map of density, so where are most species found, which is somewhere in North Hampshire, as it happens. Flight time. So one of the things that I think this is quite useful for is if you're planning a year and you're interested in seeing particular species, then knowing when they're flying is obviously a useful thing to know. So if you sort the flight times by date, then you'll see a rendering of all of the species, distinguishing between different regions of the British Isles if relevant, which is summarised at the bottom here, as well as different subspecies and when they emerge. Then this is a nice summary that gives you the flight times for each of them, and something that can be used to help plan out your year, as I said. An article on history of the species of the British butterflies, summary of historic specimens, various links for identification, including a summary of similar species. So for example, here's information on how to distinguish the females by the looks of it of Adonis blue and Chalkhill blue. Larval food plants and nectar sources we've kind of touched on. A summary of different phenologies, so you'll see a summary of all the phenology charts under there. Summary of secondary species, which is simply a species listing. Summary of sightings pages available on the web. Probably another significant element which I just want to finish off with is the sites at which we can find various species. Now what this link will take you to is a map which is interactive, and you can click on any of the grid squares. So if I go to SU, which is where I live in Berkshire, then you'll see a map which shows the the sites which have been defined in this particular grid square and available in the UK Butterflies database. And this is a Google map, and if I click on it, it'll actually show me the species found at any site I'm clicking on. And it's all hyperlinked, so if I click on one of the species names, it'll take me to that species page. And at the bottom of the page, you'll see a summary of all the sites, as well as all the species found there. And there's a couple of useful additions on here. So first of all, I can filter the map to show me the sites where a particular species is found. For example, if I just want to find sites where grayling is found, then I select grayling and the map will refresh and show those sites which are currently defined as having grayling present. There's also links off to a Google map and a street map for a particular site as well. One thing I forgot to mention was if I look at a particular species definition, so if I just go to Duke of Burgundy, there are lots of different ways to get to a species page. But if I look at the distribution map off the thumbnail here, then I've got several options for viewing this particular map. So first of all, I can look at the distribution map only. So here I can just see the base map, showing information provided by Butterfly Conservation, which they've kindly provided. So this map is actually generated in real time based on the information that's available in the database. I can then choose to overlay sites on that map, and they're shown as yellow markers. So that will give you an indication of where UK Butterflies has a site defined in the website. And you can also choose to render the map as a Google map as well. So if I show you this, then you won't see all of the distribution, but you will see all of the sites. And this is interactive, so if I want to know where, I've forgotten which species I'm on, Duke of Burgundy. So what Duke of Burgundy site is there in Kent? Well, of course it's a Denge forest, and that's therefore shown there. So lots of information about species, the species menu, the family menus that you see here with all of the species in that family listed, and of course the taxonomy page, which I showed earlier, and finally on the home page as well, where you have the species listing on the left hand side. So I think that's a fairly comprehensive summary of what we have regarding species on UK butterflies. Thanks for listening.